Hi, everyone.
Okay, I'm hoping that we can start with a poll, but I just need to see whether it's going to work for me on my computer. So
Let's go for it.
The poll is, have you switched organizations in the last 2 years? Because I want to see if I can get a sense from the audience as to whether they are moving around as much as we think. It's not popping up on the iPad, but let's see. Let's just get a sense within the audience. Could you raise your hands if you've moved roles within the last 2 years?
Roles or organization in the last 2 years? Okay, that's great. Now, can we do another poll?
Yeah?
How many of you worry that you might need to move organizations or wish to move organizations in the next 3 years?
Okay, so just to tell the people on the live stream, I mean,
Exactly.
Not a majority, but a chunk of people worried that they might need to.
Yeah, I think, we know from the projections that, there's a good third of the workforce that's on the line with the changes that are underway. And there's also a lot of people that are always looking whether there might be a better place to create value. And see, I think this idea of nomadic professionalism is not just the small slice of the population that actually moves. It's all of us who are immersed in a working culture in which we feel that if we are not mobile, we have less economic and social value. Or put another way, that people are not going to think of us as talented. People are not going to think of us as cool. And in fact, if you look at a lot of companies, they all have this idea of looking for talent. And if you scratch under the definition of talent, very often you will find mobility. That person will be capable of taking on another role, move to another place, move to another part of the business in the midterm future. And once that becomes the definition of potential and success, to feel that we are not mobile is to begin to feel fear.
So do you think we've gone too far in that direction?
Not really, honestly, and maybe. I think not really in the sense that, look, the trajectory of identity over the last 200 years has been towards more freedom. So you and I probably, if we were asked, would you choose to be in the workforce in the 1820s or in the 2020s, unless we could pick a certain kind of birthplace, we would probably say better in the 2020s, because there's a lot more latitude to make ourselves through our work. And with latitudes, with freedom, as the psychoanalyst Eric Fromm taught us, comes anxiety.
Yeah.
There are two sides of the same coin. So I think we might be going too far if our mobility reduces our humanity, if we become treated like chips in a roulette game. Then yeah, but if our mobility allows us to have opportunities and find a better place and demand a certain kind of treatment, I think it's potentially a good thing. I think the most complicated question is, for whom? For whom is it a good thing?
The employee, the company, or the leader?
Well, right, no, but also because mobility sometimes is a winner-take-all market, in which a few talented people who have the right skills, the right attitude, the right willingness and opportunities to move around, then get a lot of opportunities, capture a lot of the value, and then a lot of other people either don't move and are worried that their jobs might disappear, or they move involuntarily because they are displaced. And so I always say, show me someone who sees mobility as opportunity, and I'll show you a very fortunate boy or girl.
What can we do to give more people that opportunity then?
Well, certainly skills, connections, and I think generally skills, connections, and spaces where we can define ourselves in relation to our work, not just in relation to our organization. Because the more I'm able to define myself in relation to my work, to my skills, to the value I can create for a certain group of customers, for a segment of society, the more likely it is that mobility might lead me opportunity. So let me give you a very simple example. If I define myself as an INSEAD professor, which is the school where I work at the moment, then to go teach anywhere else might be catastrophic for my identity. But if I define myself as a management professor, any school of management that allows me to sustain my academic integrity, that gives me the resources to do my research, and that attracts good students that want to learn from me, might be just as good.
Thank you. We're getting a lot of questions in for you, so I just want to see if we can bring some of those in. Sorry, some of them have just disappeared. Here we go. How do you think leadership comes together with mentorship? And how do leaders who we saw today, how can they do better to mentor young leaders?
I think leadership, for me, leadership, the way I define it, it is that it is a relationship in which people are learning with you and from you. I mean, I don't think you're a leader unless people are learning. You know, people might be performing, and you might be an amazing machine, organizing the workflow, controlling that everything is done. Well, not an amazing machine, because we know humans have all kinds of issues. You might be a mediocre machine. Machines could do that job better, for sure. But leaders, for me, are people that we learn with and with from. So for me, leadership is indistinguishable from mentorship, because it's a relationship in which we learn to do, we learn to become, we learn to relate. How do we make it more available? I think by having, I'm sorry to use a kind of awful technical term, a meta conversation. Now, very often leaders, because they're not psychopaths most of the time, 95% of us are not psychopaths. I mean, we know from the population. So we give other people the same kind of mentorship that, we wanted ourselves. And some of us want a kind of mentorship that just, help me focus on work, let me, open the door to opportunities, and just leave it at that. And some of us want a more expansive kind of mentorship. Don't just look at my progression in the profession or in the organization, but help me also think about my well-being, my life as a whole, whether I really want to do this. Help me entertain more existential, as well as professional questions.
I'm curious to see how you envision those sides of things in the context of freelancers, consultants, and the gig economy, because we're seeing more and more skilled knowledge workers. I think 28% of skilled knowledge workers now operate as freelancers. How much should we be expecting leaders to give them a similar type of guidance, a similar type of organizational culture?
I think to every extent. I think the employment contract is one thing, and the psychological contract is another. And, look, let me ask you a question. How many of you have had a boss, and you are full-time employees? You work with that person, maybe you saw them in the office every day, and you wouldn't call them a leader if your life depended on it. All of us have had that experience. And how many of you have followed someone that you weren't contractually bound to, but that person was doing something interesting, and you were going to go along because you wanted to participate in doing that? So I think, you know what I mean? In many ways, I think I think the only problem is sometimes the leader attitude that we see. I mean, I hate with a vengeance the word that sometimes leaders use, these are my people. I mean, that's possessive, that's tribal. It's very tricky. You can say, I'm their leader. And that's fine, because you belong to them. They don't belong to you. And once you say, these are my people, and you say it about the people who have a contractual relationship, and these other people are the freelancers, you see them as less than, then what you're doing is a subtle dehumanization. And humanizations, for me, is the central trait of lousy leadership. And so the moment you humanize them and say, look, these are people I'm working with, and some of them happen to be fully employed, and I probably have certain expectations of them, and some of them are not, let me think about what are my implicit expectations.
Yeah.
Am I treating them as people? Because you see, the freelancer that's there for 2 hours, it's probably there for a reason. They are contributing in some meaningful way to whatever you're trying to do. Otherwise, they shouldn't be there. You're either wasting your company's money or you're wasting their life. But if they're there and there's a good reason they're there, then they should be treated with the same dignity, with the same respect, with the same attention as the person you've seen in the office for the last 20 years. Sometimes that person that's been there for a couple of weeks, now one of the things I love asking to colleagues the first week they join my institution is, tell me what you see. Tell me what you see here this week, because I'm pretty sure that in 2 months, you will not see it.
Yeah, you have the fresh eyes and you're perhaps brave enough to say it when you're new.
Yeah. And we often think of those kind of peripheral people as sources of effort, as assets, when they're often very interesting sources of information that others won't tell you.
Fascinating. Unfortunately, we need to wrap things up. I could sit and talk to you about this all day. It's fascinating, especially as I'm a freelancer myself. But wonderful to have you here in the Agents VC studio. Thank you so
very much.
Gianpiero.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great meeting you.